Welcome back and welcome to our first bookshelf feature of 2021. We hope you've been reading a lot this festive season. You can drop us any great recommendations on any of our social media platforms. But for today, we begin with a local author who has put together a collection of memoirs, myths and stories by 22 South African authors. The book is entitled Joburg Noir and makes the reader experience present-day Johannesburg as if one were in the past. To tell us more about Joburg Noir, we're joined by the editor, Niq Mhlongo, as well as one of our bookshelf members, Melitta Ngalonkulu. Thank you very much for your time. Guys, I'm going to start with you, Niq. Of course, 22 people that you had to edit, their stories about Johannesburg. The book starts off with a bang. It starts off with a group of people who are basically going around killing women and young girls for their hearts, to eat their hearts.
Yes, thank you, Masego, for having me here. And then I just want to say, to greet your, to say good morning to your viewers as well. I think also, just before I say this, I just want to say, just before I comment, I just want to say, thanks to the authors of Joburg Noir. It would not have been possible if those authors were not there, So thanks to them. So this is it starts with a great bang, of course. Bongile is a seasoned author, of short stories. She has done a number, award-winning. She's an award-winning short story writer. So we felt like, Joburg and South Africa as a whole has got stories to tell. And some of the stories are, hidden. So I had to change, in order to make Joburg Noir possible, I had to get stories from both the young and the old to talk about this beautiful city of ours. So Sibongile and all those people that are there, I say Sibongile because that's the first story that is there on the when you open Joburg Noir that you see. These are the stories that we needed to be told, actually. So, and I'm glad that the reception at the moment by South Africans is South African readers is great. And these are very beautiful stories, introducing the people that were not necessarily readers, to reading as well. We got variety of and for everyone's taste in Joburg Noir.
Now tell me more about the title. Noir means black, as far as I know, yes, in a certain language. Why did you choose that? And does this mean that all your authors, I just want the people who are willing to read the book, and I've got it in my hand, to understand, was it because all your readers were basically from this background?
Yes, actually, let me say that this Noir actually, it's a series in itself. So what happens is that we got Joburg Noir, we got Lagos Noir, we have Accra Noir, we have different Noirs around the world. So to unpack the term, for instance, Noir itself, it simply means the stories from the underbelly of the city itself, the darker stories of the underbelly of the cities. So when we talk about Johannesburg, we already know, we tried by all means, when I was doing this, compiling these stories from these different authors, I tried by all means to avoid the cliches, the stories that talk about the cliches of Joburg. Crime, for instance, the overt crime, the xenophobia, and all those stories that are out there, So we wanted to dig to the underbelly of the stories that are not necessarily there. Like, for instance, you read about Sibongile's story, for instance, yes, it's, as you mentioned earlier on, it talks about something new, the gangsterism, within the city itself, she talks about the Basotho. You talk about Khanyi Magubane, for instance, she talks about the train ride, being robbed inside the train. And that reminds you of certain things that have happened to you. You talk about Sam Mate, for instance. Sam will take you through what Yorville has been in the 90s and early and late 80s, for instance. Yes. Where quite a few music grew, and it was everyone. It was more like a cultural hub, you know. So we're talking about those things that are not necessarily cliches about Joburg.
Yes.
You know?
So Niq, I want to bring in one of our bookshelf club members. She's on standby in our Johannesburg newsroom for us. She basically read the book along with me. Melitta, you know, some of these stories really just resonate with you as an individual as you read them. I mean, for instance, Sfiso Mzobe speaks about how he was he sold drugs, and he had this friend of his who was always high, etc. But what resonated with me was Michelle van Heerden's story as well, about Guy Fawkes, although I don't remember Guy Fawkes the way that she does, of course, but it's also about her hair, how her hair always curled. No matter how many times her mom tried to relax her hair, she was always frowned upon because of how it curled. What resonated with you in the book?
What resonated with me was basically about people, how they come to Joburg, people from all around the world, from Zimbabwe and also around South Africa as well. And they come to Joburg with a dream and they want to realize that dream. Unfortunately, some people's dreams do not come into reality, and they are swallowed by the city. But you do get those that actually, whose dreams are realized, and it does happen. So that's one of the things that resonated with me. And also the corruption within the city itself when it comes to tenders. Within the book, there's a story on how a police commissioner was killed, and also one of the people who they suspected was working with the police, so was killed because they had suspected, because they had killed somebody else. So it's all about the crime and the corruption which takes place in the city, and it's all about people just trying to make it, even if they step on other people.
And of course, you brought that story about, it was written, I think, by Keletso Mopai, about that Zimbabwean woman who had to leave her small baby and her husband to come to Johannesburg for greener pastures with her brother, I believe. You know, she had to leave her child behind to come here, only to realize that it's not as great as people were, as she was expecting it to be. And also to find out that she's lost her husband now, because now he's called her to tell her he's moving in with somebody else.
That is true. And also, like, the story even goes on about her, how she worked for a store in Johannesburg while she moved here, and then she got fired from that, and then she had to work her way up. But that's just the daily struggle of what's happening with a lot of people within Johannesburg. A lot of people come here thinking that they're coming here for greener pastures, and once they get here, the true reality of things start to materialize after a while.
Now, Niq, there's also another story that, for instance, resonated with me. It's the Finder one. I think it's by Khanyi Makubane. I have been a person who has walked the streets of Johannesburg, and unlike other people, I didn't need to move here. I was born and bred in Soweto, so I am from Johannesburg. And I remember when I had to go to school eventually by using public transport, my mom was so scared, and that was the only way my parents gave me a cell phone so that they can get a hold of me. Without that, I wouldn't have had a cell phone at the age I was at. But this also talks about how you get cheated in Johannesburg if you're not careful. You know, you hear those stories about don't look up, the buildings are too high, don't look up. If you look up, your bags will be gone.
Yes, I think you nailed it, Masego. More especially, you know, I also grew up in Joburg. I remember at some point I was at the TCE, Transvaal College of Education, and I was commuting there from Soweto. And these things that Khanyi Makubane is speaking about in Finder actually happened to me. Actually, to anybody that has boarded a train, that has used a train. It's a story that resonates with everybody. That's why I love it too much, because it's a story that is lived. It's an open-ended story in a sense that you read Khanyi Makubane's experience, and all of a sudden you see yourself inside the train immediately, you know, and it takes you back in time. So that's what it did to me as well, you know, when I was reading it. And quite a number of stories. I mean, for instance, Melitta talks about the story of the tenders. Lucas Lidwaba's story and Fred Khumalo's stories, they resonate with me. It's what is happening even today as we speak. I mean, we have the commission that is about state capture. It's all about what they've written about. So this is the Joburg that we want to talk about, that we want to know, that we brought to people. We want the stories themselves. You read the stories, but it reminds you of other things, other things that have happened in your life and things that are happening now, and also helping us to reshape Joburg the way we would like it to be for the future of South Africa.
My conclusion, Melitta, is that, you have to get this book, whether you're a person who is from Johannesburg to probably laugh at some of the things that are written here, or somebody who's not even in the country or even in Johannesburg, to see some of the things that people go through. So I say yes to the book. And your conclusion?
I say yes to the book because it did remind me of some experiences which I experienced myself when I moved to Joburg 3 years ago, for instance, of being robbed, and you don't even expect it, people asking you for money on the street, only to know that, once you realize that you are actually the victim at that point. So I would say yes, but at the beginning it did kind of seem a bit mundane, I'm not going to lie. I was like, okay, where are we going with this? Where are we going with this? But the more I continued to read the book, the more I realized that, actually, there is a bit of action there.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for your time. That is, of course, Niq Mhlongo, the editor of Joburg Noir, a book that we are reviewing today. And, of course, thank you very much for your time as well, Melitta Ngalonkulu, one of our bookshelf members here on eNCA. Now, the week's top stories in Week in One coming up next, and that will be followed by The Fix with Karima Brown. That's where myself and the team ended for today. Thank you for watching.